All right, everybody, welcome back to the My Father podcast. I am joined with my good friend Mark, um, and he was gracious enough to talk about something pretty vulnerable. So I just wanted to thank you, Mark, and we're going to talk about your sobriety today. I know it's probably something that is probably deep for you, right? Like I have to assume that's pretty, it touches home, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like awkward to talk about and stuff like that,
I'm
but
sure.
it's a real thing. So it's
Yeah,
also good to talk about it. It helps.
yeah, definitely, man. I think there's a lot of people who don't even know that they need to talk about it. You know,
Oh, 100%, 100%.
um, So I guess my first question for you is like, when did you realize that you even had a problem, or what kickstarted all of it?
I think for me, it was just realizing that I was just doing things out of the ordinary. As far as like, I think certain things affect you in such a way that you act and do irrational things, and that's kind of what was happening to me. Was that I just started to realize like this is taking over my life. Like it's affecting other things in my life. Like I think that's the whole thing about it is that sometimes without you noticing it, it's actually affects a lot of things in your life.
Yeah,
And like for me, I started to pick up on that. I think for another thing was that I grew up in a with a father who was an alcoholic, a mother who was an alcoholic, and I was able to see the effects of that stuff. So I was kind of like, I had a surreal moment where I was kind of reliving it, but it was me doing it.
yeah, yeah. And so, was that your drug of choice? Was it alcohol, or what are we talking about here?
So for me, it really started with a lot of different things. Um, and I can say now, and I truly believe this, and I could be wrong, but I don't think anyone's really like you become free to addiction in the sense that you stop doing it, correct? But I
Hmm.
still think it's still in there and it's still in there.
Yeah,
So like for instance, for me, I used to do a lot of coke. That
yeah,
was like my thing when I was younger. Is I do a lot of coke and a lot of pills, like ecstasy, basically.
yeah.
And the reason I was able to get sober from that was because I actually ended up going to prison. So I
Okay.
mean, it was accessible in there as well. Kind of crazy, but
Really?
yeah, that kind of stuff is still accessible. You can still get certain things in there.
Wow.
But I think the thing for me was that because I was already in there and I was already in trouble, they do random UAs there. So they're like they'll randomly come wake you up at like 6, 5 in the morning and give you a UA. Like, and no one knows when it's gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
really random in that way where you're sleeping and all of a sudden they open your cell and they're like, come on. So I
Wow.
always had that fear of like losing, getting more time and stuff like that for doing that kind of stuff. So I just stayed sober throughout my whole prison sentencing, and I
Hmm.
just was like, okay, I'm not gonna do any drugs. I'm just gonna stay sober. So that helped me to stay sober from those types of drugs. But honestly, I think my addiction is just to anything that um, affects the body in such a way, or it releases endorphins in maybe not the most natural ways.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people use it to mask something, and it could be anything. It could be food, it could be sex. Like an addict's an addict, and I think it counts for
Yeah.
everything.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
yeah. So you didn't really seek any help. It sounds like you kind of just you went to prison, and it was kind of that was your moment of like, okay,
Right.
slow it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was it. I had a son, and then I think the other thing too was that my mom, like I said, both my parents were alcoholics. Uh, my dad never really did anything about it. He stopped
Yeah.
slowly drinking until he got older, and he sadly passed away 4 years ago. Had liver failure, a lot to do with alcohol and stuff like that. But my mom did something about it, and she went to AA. And I remember being like eighth grade or something when she started this process. And the thing about AA, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Don't get me wrong or anything like that. But when you're in AA, you give a lot of yourself. You go to these meetings. You're sponsored by somebody, and eventually you sponsor somebody and things like that. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think anything like that. But for me as a child, I always felt like it took my mom away. Where like
Really?
if she wasn't in AA, she was at work. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think and she had to put her sobriety first, which I totally understand. Like now that I'm older,
Yeah.
I totally get it. But I always had this weird because since you brought up like me getting sober or how did I do it, was I always had this weird relationship with like programs.
Yeah.
Because having kids and stuff, I always felt like, man, this is going to take so much of my time. There's got to be another way, and I'm very stubborn in that way, that I always try to find a way to do things on my own.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always try to I'm very competitive, and I kind of took that competitiveness into my sobriety, where I was like, I need to be competitive in this aspect of like staying sober and like wanting to
Yeah.
be sober. So
Yeah. That's a good way to look at that, man. That I've never heard of anyone talking about how they felt like it took away the parent, but it makes complete sense. It does. It does, and it's I've never heard anyone say that. So I'm sure there's people out there who can relate to that, man. That's pretty good.
yeah.
And so you did it on your own. What exactly did you do? You just stopped cold turkey and never looked back, or was it a
No,
process?
no. So, like I said, the addiction is always there. And I think with an addict is like you said yourself, you find different avenues or different things to consume that you eventually become addicted to, and you try to justify them, by, I guess, giving yourself reasons like why it's okay or why it's justifiable. And I think for
Yeah.
me, it's like I stopped all those things. And for a long time, I stayed sober. I did the church thing, went to church and all that, and took my family to church and everything. But eventually, like I said, it's in there. So I
Yeah.
started to drink. That was like a big thing. I started to drink again when I was once like maybe like I would probably say 6 months after I got out to a year. I started
Yeah.
to drink again, and that was like looking back. It all kind of like there's little things that happen that I don't think should happen to you when you're doing something. So like when I remember that I actually ended up in a hospital because I got into this fight and I got thrown off like a flight of stairs and split my head open a
Yeah.
couple months, like a year after I got out and everything. So like I said, I think when you get to that point where it starts affecting your life, where you don't know how to
Yeah.
control yourself,
Yeah.
that's when you have to really tell yourself it's a problem, which I didn't do. I just kind of masked and I was like, okay, I just obviously need to drink a little slower, or I just need to take it easy a little bit here and there. And I drank for a long time. It got to the point where I was drinking a 6 pack a day, and it was just like a normal thing.
Yeah.
And then it started like there, and then from there I went back to smoking. I had stopped smoking for a long time, but then I just went back to smoking. It was something that I had picked up at a very young age. So I started smoking. I mean, it was just smoking and drinking, and I
Yeah.
really never got off of it. Till a couple of months ago that I've been completely sober
Yeah.
for the longest I've been.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reasons why I got sober previously were for all the wrong reasons. Like it would cause problems between my marriage and my
Yeah.
relationship. So I would like stop just for a while just to like, show face. And
Yeah.
but once everything kind of calmed down, I
Go
would,
right back to it.
start back up again, and being sneaky, lying about this,
So what worked this time? What
I
changed?
think so this time. um so I think this time what worked was that, like I said, I've always gone to church, and I've always kind of put I've always thought that I put my faith in God and stuff like that. So there was a couple of things. One was there was like how would I say it? Just like kind of like a spiritual situation
Mm-hmm.
happened to someone really close to me, where this particular person isn't a believer or anything like that, but they had some weird, it's kind of weird to get into it just because I know it's like a touchy subject, and a lot of people, have their
Yeah. Yeah.
hearsay or shit on it. But let's just say that that person relayed a message to me from my dad who passed away, which really kind of took me by surprise. And I guess I was just at a point where I was like, I can either say that things happen just because they happen, or luck, or whatever you may call it, or I can decide to say that it's God talking to me. And
Yeah.
I think we all get into those situations where we're asking for a sign, we're asking for some type of motion, and sometimes they're there. And I
Yeah.
truly believe they're there and that they happen, and it could be the smallest thing, but it's us that chooses to realize like, okay, I want to listen to that, or this time I'm gonna decide that that is him talking to me. So
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the factors, was like, okay, this is, beyond, this is like a spiritual thing. Someone's trying to communicate with me and tell me like, you need to stop what you're doing. And I think looking, with that being said, I was also like analyzing my life as far as like my health, my fitness, my spiritual, the way I was being mentally, and my relationship with my wife and my kids, and
Yeah.
just seeing like all the things that I was lacking and all the things that I wanted in a father growing up, and that all this stuff was affecting, I was able really to like kind of step out of myself and look at myself and just was very disappointed in who had I become. It's weird because it's just like the oddest thing. I think that you essentially become the person that you resented or hated the most growing up. It's kind of weird how that happens, you know.
Yep.
And that's what I realized. I was like, man, that's so crazy. Like, and I think I realized it not only in me, but a lot of close friends that we grew up without dads. Friends that I know now that barely see their kids, and I'm just like, damn, like we became the people that we despise the most.
It's
The people.
interesting because we all tell ourselves, I'm never gonna be that. I'm never gonna
Yeah,
be,
exactly. Yep.
and
Yep.
somehow
Yep.
through the back door, we're like, fucking shit, I'm right here.
Yeah, it's really crazy, man. It's a really I'm interested to really study that phenomenon and how that
Yeah.
happens because it's something that we fight our whole lives and we strive not to be. And like you said, man, before you know it, you open your eyes one day and you're just like, holy fuck, like
Yep.
I'm that guy. Like I can't believe I let myself get to this point. So it was that, and then I think I've shared this with you prior, but also listening to a lot of books and actually putting the stuff that they said into play.
Yeah.
I've spoke a lot about David Goggins with you before. That was
Yep.
a big motivating factor for me, just because I feel like, for me personally, he was one of the first people that kind of just went an honest truth about everything. It wasn't like sugar coated or trying to tell you that you're gonna live happily ever after at a certain point in your life, or that you're gonna wake up one day and you're just gonna be happy with everything you're doing and you're gonna
Yeah.
continue on that path. I think like you hear that a lot from a lot of things, motivational speakers, social media, and a lot of things, but life isn't like that.
Yeah.
It's just really not. It's a grind every single day. Every day is a battle, whether it's a small battle at
It
work,
is.
at home. It's a battle every day, man.
It
And for
definitely
me,
is.
that's what really made me realize, like, because I guess I made up somewhere in my mind that I really thought there was like an answer, like a end to it all. Like there was some type, something that I could do or take
Just
that
fix it
would just,
and
yeah,
it'd
to
be done.
fix it
Yeah.
and to take everything away and like just be
Yeah.
done with it. Like I'm not listening to the right sermon. I'm not listening to the right book or something. Like
Yeah.
the answer's out there, but I realized that the answer really lied within me. Like it,
Yeah.
it had to be me. Like it has to be us that takes ourselves out of those situations and out of that mentality. And
Yeah.
I think the second thing was that I stopped playing victim. I think for a long time in my life, even though I didn't want to admit it, I played victim. I think one of my favorite phases that my wife can attest to this, that I always tell her, was like, well, I grew up like this.
Yeah.
This is what I know, or this is what I've seen. This is just something that I've been through, and like,
Yeah.
and it's weird because I literally was talking to somebody at work today, and we were going on about how I was telling them like you're very forgetful, you're this and that, like we need to work on this kind of stuff, and people say that they were like, well, this is how I am, this how, and it's crazy. Like you think like that's not how you are.
Yeah.
That's who you're choosing to be,
Yeah.
and it's up to you to change that. Obviously, it's gonna take work. It could take weeks, months, years. I mean, I don't know, but you don't have to be that. And I think that's what I realized is like I need to stop being a victim
Yeah.
of my past, of the things that I've gone through, and like blaming my father, blaming this person, blaming for not being this and that. Like I really just stopped that. I was
Yeah.
just like, you know what, that's enough.
Now they say that most addicts are hiding some. They're covering something up with their addiction. Have you found out what you're covering up?
I think for me, I want it could be a couple of things, but I'll say something that I think a lot of people might not want to say. But it was like the wanting to be loved. When you're
Yeah.
drinking and you're smoking, you have plenty of friends, man.
Yep.
For some reason, there's always somebody who's down to smoke. There's
You're
always someone who's down to
There's always someone to
have a
fucking
beer.
sit. Yep,
Right.
exactly.
There's always someone to be that. And if you're the guy that acts a fool or stands out when you're drinking or smoking, and just like you're that guy that just brings happiness to everybody in those moments, because they're going through their own pain as well.
Yep,
You
yep.
know what I mean? So when you're that guy, you're just loved by everybody.
Yeah,
You're loved by everybody. Everybody wants to come and they want to come see you. They want to come hang out. And I think that's what it was for me, man. I mean,
yeah.
when you grow up with like I said, an app.
You cut out, Mark.
My bad. Somebody was calling me.
Oh, no
When
worries.
you grow up, when you grow up with like an absent father, or like I said, my mother, who I love, and I know she did her best, but I mean, if
Yeah,
you can imagine, I mean, I'm in a relationship. I have a wife. We've been together 13 years, and it's hard
yeah,
raising kids. We have 3 kids, and it's hard. There's so
yeah,
much to do. We work, all this stuff, right? Well, I can only imagine my mother raising 5 kids on her own, dealing with a lot of stuff. Like I get it, so
yeah.
but because of those struggles, there was a lot of moments where she was absent. You know
Yep.
what I mean? She wasn't
Yeah.
there. She wasn't around. I was raised by
So,
television. And go ahead.
do you think that you suffer from some abandonment issues?
I think so. I think that that's
Yeah.
because I remember, even like I said, these are things that are uncomfortable, but I talk
Yeah.
about them because I want, like, the guy that I like look up to, this guy, like I said, David, a
Yeah.
lot, is that he's really real about it, and he gets real
Yeah.
uncomfortable with it, and he tells the truth. And the truth of the matter is that I can even remember just wanting to have a girlfriend so bad in high school,
Hmm.
just wanting to be with somebody or have someone love me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can remember just wanting that feel and willing to do crazy amount of stuff. I'll share something funny with you. 6 months, 8 months into the relationship with who's my wife now, thankfully, I got her name tattooed on my chest. You know what I mean?
Dang.
Just and I look back at it now, and it was a result of those mixed emotions,
Of
not
those clear
knowing.
signs, though, right? That
Right,
like,
yeah, those are clear signs. Exactly,
yeah,
100%. And like now I get it, and I see that, and and like I said, it's just a lot of things that you go through, and I think that was the thing for me, is that
yeah,
I just wanted to be loved.
yeah,
I wanted to be popular growing up.
yep,
I wanted to be, invited in, and all those kinds of
yeah.
things. So I think that
I
progressed throughout my
completely
life.
get it, man. I completely get it. Like, so my childhood was very similar. My mom was doing her stuff and my dad was absent. So like to me, yeah, I got some abandonment issues too. Like
Yeah.
I like to have people around me. I don't like to be alone. Like I'm
Right.
noticing that now in my adult age, if I'm alone, I need to be busy.
Yeah.
Like I can't just
Yeah.
like just chill.
No, I agree. I agree, and I think that that's a big thing, because even like the times that I, had issues with my wife and we separated for a little bit, I could never be alone. Like you said, I
Yeah.
would always try to go find something to do, find people to hang out with. And I just realized that, yeah, that's what I was masking, is the
Yeah.
inability to just kind of like be on my own and realize that I'm okay.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna be all right.
And that's one reason why I smoked weed, because I felt like it took me out of that feeling alone,
Right.
where I was okay to be alone when I was high. Like,
Right.
and so that's
Yeah,
why
because it just gives you something to do. It gives you
yeah,
something else to think about, or it kind of enhances everything, right? Like you watch a
yeah,
movie, it's not as, you don't even notice that you're really by yourself watching this movie because
exactly.
you're high, and you're enjoying, you're eating some food or whatever it
Yep.
is. And I totally get that. Like I said, that was my big thing. And I think another thing that came along with that addiction was addiction of lying,
Yeah.
because of the fear of not wanting to be alone.
Yep.
I would lie or make promises that I could not keep. Even my wife, like when we got married, which it's not a good thing to do with, like her, what she did wasn't good either. But she said, well, if you want to get married, you have to promise you're not gonna smoke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, like, you don't. I tell, like, now we look back, and I was like, that's not how you don't set somebody up like that. But
Yeah.
I should have also been man enough to been like, okay, you know what, like that's just not gonna be a
Yeah.
thing.
But
You know what I
the
mean?
fear of being alone is so big that yeah, I'll make up any lie.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yep.
I promise, 100%. I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's what it is. So it's just like the addiction just kind of creates all these other, I guess, issues with character, and
Hmm.
integrity, and things that come along with that, where you're lying or doing things that you're not supposed to be doing. And for me, I think the addiction also is a point of, like, for me, it was like I had to get high before everything. So I had to get high before I went to work, because I'm stressed and I need to get to
Yeah.
work relaxed so that I can focus. And then, well, I got to get high while I'm at work so
Yeah.
that I can, supposedly focus or not
Man,
have to
I've been
worry
at
about
work
everything
before,
else.
and as some guys will smoke some weed and come back in, he's working harder than I've ever seen him work. So I
Yeah.
don't. I'm like, damn, is that what happens when you smoke?
Yeah. And like I said, I think it's like anything else too. It affects people differently. I think that's
Yeah.
another thing too. Like I always tell people, because people are like, well, I just don't understand with the alcohol, like why you can't drink one beer. I was having a conversation with one of my younger guys. He's just like about 21, 22.
Oh, you muted
that I
your
met when I, my bad. Am I there?
Yeah, you're good.
That
You're good. Oh no, not
that I
anymore.
met no, oh, that I met when I was working and stuff, and he was just like, "But why can't you just at least have one?" And what I told him is just like, some people are just accessible to more things, right? Like
Yeah,
some people can go out, have fun, and know they got to go home at a certain time. And I had to be real with myself. Like I'm rowdy. And
yeah,
if I get around rowdy people and they hype me up, I think that wanting to be loved, right?
yeah,
Wanting to be
yeah,
accepted. I go from, well, I was only coming out here for 2 beers to where, now we're blacking out
yeah.
and
But the
the
fact that you
night
can
went
identify
crazy.
that you can identify that's like a huge thing, man. Like that you can.
Right.
You're like, nah, nope. I know myself.
Right.
You
And
know.
and that's why I look to the Bible a lot because I started to realize, me personally, and this is what I think. I think that if you take God, Jesus, and all like the religious miracle stuff out of the Bible, and let's just say it's just a book on how to live,
Yeah.
the advice is incredible.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking about financial advice. We're talking about advice how you should treat your kids, your wife, how you should treat other people. I mean, it's just great advice. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know anyone who wants to argue against you shouldn't kill somebody or you shouldn't steal from people or you shouldn't be dishonest. I mean, that I think that's a given, right? Like that's the moral
Yeah.
code, and it's just in the Bible, and it's something to go off of. And the biggest lesson that I was able to take from the Bible and one of the books in the Bible was King David. God had told him not to go outside at a certain point in the day because women would bathe, I guess, back in the day on
Hmm.
balconies at night. So men weren't allowed to go out into the balconies or be out at night because the women would bathe. That was their
Yeah.
time to bathe. So God had told David not to go out there because even though David loved God and even though David feared God and all these great things, David was still human and was susceptible to sin. And we
Hmm.
all have our points where we'll break or things that we just situations we should just not put ourselves in
Yeah.
because we may think we know how we're going to react. And David sinned. David ended up having adultery and committing adultery with a woman who was already married, then getting her husband killed so that he could be with her. Whole long story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Point being is that I took that and realized that that's me. I'm not able to go out and I'm not able to be in certain situations or put myself in certain situations. There's nothing wrong with that. There's just some people that can and some people that can't.
Yeah.
Like I believe that there's people that are meant to be warriors. They go to war and they're able in those situations not to panic, and their
Yeah.
mind kicks into gear and they know what they're supposed to do. And you can take a guy and put him through training 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, but if it's not in him,
Yeah.
it's not in him.
Yeah.
And I just think that's what it is in certain degrees. That's why we have athletes, that's why we have teachers, that's why we have artists, because everybody has a gift and an ability within them of what they're
Yeah.
capable of doing and not doing. And for me, I think I just came to the realization that I can't drink. Alcohol is something that brings something very nasty out in me. It's
Hmm.
something that just takes over me, the feeling, the wanting to drink.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it's good, man. It's good that you can identify that. Now through the whole process of your sobriety and everything, like who's been your biggest supporter? Who do you give it to? You? Do you give it to someone else? Do you give it to God? Who do you give it to?
I, I would have to say I give it to God, man, because this is like I said, I believed in God for a long time, growing up, going to church and everything. But I think this last time, back in I think October, the beginning of October, where this kind of whole change happened to me, where I decided I'm just going cold turkey on everything. Is I got on my knees, man, and I prayed and I said, I've tried to do it on my own. I tried to justify it on my own. I tried to deal with it on my own. You're sending me all these messages through people and stuff. I was just like, just one day at a time. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
wake up tomorrow and just not do it. And I think the correlation of that and listening to my man David Goggins and kind of putting it was just like the perfect storm, I guess, in my life. And I
Yeah.
think for everybody it happens at a certain point and it might take certain things. But having those issues with my wife, uh, my kids, like I think another thing that I realized was like I think a lot of us want our kids to do great. I think every one of us wants our kids to grow up and do something amazing.
Yeah.
We want our kid to do their best in whatever it is that they're putting they're putting their efforts in.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was such a big hypocrite because I wanted my kids to be good at basketball. I wanted my kids to be good at sports, and there I was smoking every little bit of chance that I could and watching TV and
Yeah.
eating junk food and doing all these things like And that was just another, it was just a bunch of little things that kind of came together. Like I said, that I was able to be like, dude, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like you're a big fucking hypocrite. Honestly, like
It's
that's
that
what it.
looking at yourself and really like being honest
Yeah,
with yourself. I think most
yeah,
people aren't honest with
yeah,
themselves.
yeah. And again, taking it back to Goggins.
Yeah.
Goggins, was the one that he has a thing where he talks about being unhealthy and getting in shape, and he was just like, stop lying to yourself. He's like, you live in a society where everyone's gonna make you feel good, and it's true. I had so many people that when I was going through this process were like, well, I don't know if you need to quit smoking, man. I mean, I get it, I guess, but maybe you can smoke here and there, or
Yeah.
maybe like this, or maybe you could have a beer on just the weekends. How about you just do that? Like maybe during the week you don't drink, and this on the weekends you drink. And
Yeah.
that's what he talks about, is that you're always going to have that mentality of people
Yeah.
that can't see themselves maybe doing
So, but
something.
it justifies them doing it. It makes them
That's what I was
feel.
going to say.
Yeah.
100% misery likes company, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I think that's what it is too, is like it allows them to feel like, well, it's okay. Like, well, if this guy who was supposed to try to get so sober is doing it, I mean, then I guess I'm all right if I'm
Yeah.
only doing it once in a while. You know
Justifies
what
their
I mean?
actions. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that was all that stuff kind of put together, and just being honest, looking at myself in the mirror, and then also putting things into action. I think a lot of us read books, we literature, whatever you want to call it, watch videos, and even in these books or these videos, they give you little things to do to put into action. Like write yourself notes,
Yeah. Yeah.
set yourself goals. I'll be honest with you, man, I've never done that, with until a couple months ago. I had never
Mhm.
done that. And I've read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Secret. I
Yeah.
read all those books, even Christian books, My Purpose Driven Life. I read all those books that a lot of people have looked into, New York bestsellers and all that stuff, but I never truly put the stuff in action. I never truly grabbed that piece of paper and wrote down my feelings. I
Yeah.
think that was the big factor for me, is in one of the chapters in Goggins's book. I took that out of the book where he's like, I would listen to the audio, because I work a lot with my hands. I paint, I do a lot of stuff. So I would listen to the audio here at home and everywhere. And I'll tell you the truth, man. When I heard that first chapter of that guy's book, I cried, dude, because that was the first time that I ever felt that someone else understood what I
Yeah.
felt. Like it was a real, that
Yeah.
scaredness of being real, of sharing your real feelings, of, because I think a lot of people put stuff out there, but they don't really put the real out there.
Yeah.
So even for someone like me, I still don't want to get that real, because I'm like, oh, maybe this guy's lying, or
Yeah.
no one's like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a
So
good book, man. It's really good, and I
yeah,
remember, yeah, I remember the first time I read it. It was really good, and his life was just crazy, man. Like the stuff he went through,
yeah,
and how honest he is about the whole thing. Like
yeah. And it's
his
and constant failures, constant
yeah,
failures, even when he found success, and even getting older. And like I said, in that book, there's a chapter where he just kind of has you write down the whole, like, talks about the victim mentality, and he kind of has you write down everyone that wronged you. And I did that. I went through my dad, my mom, the bullies in school, girls, you name it. I went and I just
yeah,
wrote on a piece of paper, and I wrote all this stuff. And at the end, he says, you also just write, you can't beat me, you can't break me.
yeah.
And that was it for me, where I was just like, okay, that's it, this is the beginning of a new chapter, I'm done with all that.
That's
And I
cool,
think
man.
that was, yeah. And like I said, I think that's why there's no formula or no answer that you can give somebody. I think that's one of the things I love that he also says, is motivation is like a fart, here one moment, gone the next.
Yeah,
And I truly believe that, because a lot of us are looking for motivation, but the motivation is I don't think it's motivation, it's more of a drive, right?
yep,
Like we need
yep,
to find the drive. And I think that's right in front of us, in our children. Like one of the big things for me is my kids. I don't want my sons to hear what I'm saying. I want them to see what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I want them
yeah,
to be like, never to be able to be like, well, no, it's like, damn it. Like he's really about that. He wakes up and he works out. He's doing this, he's clean, he cleans his bathroom, he cleans
yeah,
his dishes, he's on it, he spent times with mom, him and mom don't fight, he knows how to communicate. It's, because all of us, especially people like us that grew up in that type of environment with one parent, other parent, I
yeah,
think we have more of a savviness to us, a real way to rebuttal, because we
yeah.
kind of had to
We
learn how
grew
to
we grew
protect
up with
ourselves.
that defense, and we have an
Yeah,
excuse for everything. We can get out of anything.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's a
exactly. So
slyness almost.
exactly. So I think that with that being said, it's like um, because we have that, it's hard for us to smell our own shit too, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that that causes is that I realized my whole time growing up, I always looked for an excuse or would call out people on things, and I realized that kids, I don't care. I think I honestly truly believe this. Children, kids, teenagers, they don't care what you say. I think even people to a certain point only believe so much that comes out of your mouth. But I 100% believe people watch what you do.
Yep.
They're watching exactly what you do, when you do it, how you do it, all that stuff, and they're
Yeah.
seeing it, and they'll call you. And even your kids sometimes will call you out on it, but you do it.
Yeah, they will.
You
You're
know,
like, damn, I
oh,
do.
right, right. So I think that was a big thing for me too. Was just like, okay, I have to put this stuff into
Yeah.
action.
So while you're going through this process, did you lose a lot of old friends?
Yeah, I was actually just talking to somebody about this that during the sobriety thing is a long process, and it's like a roller coaster where you
Yeah.
have really
Yeah.
good days, you have really bad days, you get into chapters of sobriety that you didn't realize were a thing, right? Like that you didn't realize were gonna, like, I don't know, I guess like were gonna happen. Like for instance, for me, I as I got into and where I'm at now, I'm healthier, I'm spiritually, all these different things. I started realizing that I'm not talking or hanging out with the people that I once did. And some of these people are dear to me because some of them are actually family members.
Yeah.
And now that's actually a part of my next chapter and a part of something that I'm going through now is coming to terms with that. Because
Yeah.
again, wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, and now realizing that, well, I'm not anymore. And maybe they do love me, but they just don't accept me, or because of the way that I am. Because what you get to a point where if you're a certain type of way, you're gonna make certain people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're doing something, but it's a self-realization of their own faults
Yep.
and the things that they're going through, where they rather avoid you or talk to you or see you because it makes them feel uncomfortable about the life they're living,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I remember
And
there was a part in my journey where I was like on 10. I was like up here, and anyone I came around, I could tell that they were uncomfortable. They did not like it because I
oh yeah,
think I was full blown myself, and I was feeling it, and I think it was just uncomfortable for the people.
oh yeah,
When you're that
oh
like
yeah,
accountable to yourself, your fitness, your
yeah,
eating, your
oh
mentality,
yeah.
and if
It's because
people
you're
you
honest.
yeah,
You're honest. And that's the thing, is like, because we don't have a lot of honesty in this world. We don't have a lot of people that are going to call you out on your crap.
yeah,
You have a lot of yes men who are going to be like, oh yeah, yo, or would agree with you. Um, it's easy to join a pity party. I don't know if you've ever been a part of that, where you walk in a room and this guy's like, oh man, this month really sucks because of this. And well, yeah, you know what? This month really sucks for me because of this. And it's rare you walk in.
I left the position at work because of that. I
Yeah.
can't be around you anymore. Like you're trying to suck
Yeah.
this out of me, and I can't have it.
Right. And there's people, and it's like that, man. And it's rare where you walk into a room and everybody's like, yeah, man, today's awesome. We're going to kill it. You're doing
Yeah,
great. Like, it's just rare to find that type of energy and environment. Does it exist? Definitely. There's groups out there, there's successful teams,
yeah,
whatever you want to call it, that does exist, but it's a rare thing. You know what I mean?
yeah. It is.
And I think that, yeah. So like I said, I think that you do lose friends, you do lose people, and I'm starting to come to terms with that. I'm starting to realize it just but what it has also helped me do though, and I guess the flip side of that, it has made me appreciate other people that have always been in my life,
Hmm.
that maybe they weren't my number one choice to hang out with, or
Yeah.
they weren't my number, because I say it like this because I heard this term in sales or something like that. It's not the sexy way of doing it, but it's the
Hmm.
right way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because there's a sexy way of doing things, and then there's like like, oh, you're square, or
Yeah.
that's just the right way of doing it. And sometimes do it the sexy way isn't the way. It
Yeah.
may look good and it's fun, but it's gonna, you're gonna end up in the same spot eventually. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's the other realization. Like now, I hang out with my family a lot, whether it's my kids or my wife. I'm always with them. I'm not ever with them, which is how it should be. You know what I mean? I'm always, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that you shouldn't have time to yourself. Everybody should have a hobby or something to do. But your family is it's also your life too, man. Your
Yeah.
kids, making sure they're growing up for me, I have men, so young boys, so making sure they're growing up to be good men. But hanging out with my brothers and sisters who, like, growing up, we weren't all close. We were all kind of doing our own thing, and then I was getting in trouble, and everybody was just kind of in their own thing, and then they struggle with their own things, that they went through it with our, our growing ups and stuff
Yeah.
that they're having to come to terms with, and stuff like that. So I think the flip side of that is that it's allowed me to kind of pay more attention to my loved ones, those that are close to me, and anyone that's meant to be in your life. Like, they'll understand. They'll get to a point where they'll understand, and they'll come around. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It may take a year or 2 years, but true friendships, I truly believe, and people like that, they'll come around. They always will, and it'll be. And I think also the nice thing about that is when you have true relationships with somebody, you kind of pick up right where you left off. You
Yeah.
might be in different chapters in your life, different different tracks, like a
Yeah.
race. You're on your own thing, they're on their own thing, but it picks up right where it left off, like
Oh,
no love
definitely,
lost.
man. Definitely. I was talking to someone recently about this, and like the feeling from like before to now, you're more conscious. You're aware of more things. You realize there's more levels to life, and like the difference between those two. I tried to explain that. I can't. It's hard to explain, to put it in words. And
Yeah,
someone related to me, and they said it's like a butterfly. You're like a caterpillar, and then you go into a cocoon, and you open up, and you can fly away, and you're free. And I was like,
right,
wow, the cocoon, that's that lonely time when you do lose those friends,
right.
and you're by yourself more, and you're in your head, and you're thinking about things more. I'm like,
That makes
man, that was a
sense.
beautiful metaphor.
That is a very good metaphor for it, because yeah, that's what you're doing, is you're in there and you're growing and you're kind of putting yourself together, and it's a battle that some of us have to go through on our own, you know what I
I think
mean?
most
And
of us have to go through it on our own,
yeah, 100%, a hundred
It's,
percent.
and then you get out, and you're a different person,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. And then if you think about it, a lot of people are still caterpillars or in that cocoon, so you can't stick around. You're flying around doing things, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So you're kind of moved on that in that way, So that is
Yep.
a really good metaphor for
It
that.
was really good, man. It was
Yeah.
the guy told me. I was like, man, that was really good. I guess it had something to do with biblically. I don't know exactly, but um
Yeah.
so last question, man. If there was someone else who was struggling with some addiction issues, what are like 3 nuggets that you'd give them right now when they're at their worst?
I think one would be to just be completely honest with yourself. Just come to terms with the fact that you have an issue. I think it's stop justifying the things that you're going through, or trying to, defend what you're going through, would be one. And I think that ties into, like, again, if it's affecting other things in your life, it could be even little. Like, nothing should affect your life like that. That's the
Yep.
thing, is that a lot of times we get into, well, it was just this little thing. Well, I was just late to work this one time,
Yeah.
or I forgot, or I forgot to pick up my kid, or I forgot to pay
Yep.
this bill, or it's something like that. Like, then you have to be able to nip it in the bud and be like, damn, okay, this is a problem,
Yeah.
and I need
I
to do
agree.
something about it. So I think honesty in all aspects and all around it would be the number one key thing. I think second would be to realize, if you're like enabled, I guess. I don't know if that ties into honesty, but just realizing that being around certain people or certain things can trigger that.
Yeah.
That no matter how hard it is to maybe get away from that girlfriend, those friends, whatever it may be, that they might be the trigger to your addiction. They might be the reason behind what you're doing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think the third thing is to, even though you're going through all these things, is to love yourself. Like, honestly, like, love yourself and realize that you can do better. Don't sell yourself short. Love yourself.
Yeah.
Want more for yourself.
Yep.
Push yourself
I
to
think that's a
want
big
more.
one, man.
You know what
It's a
I mean? You gotta
self-value.
love yourself. Yeah, self
I
value. Because, like, I think a lot of people, when they hear me say, because I tell people, like, yeah, when I was, I've gotten a lot healthier, lost a lot of weight. Like, I would tell myself, you're fat, do some push-ups. Like, I'm not like trying to belittle myself or put myself down. It's just a way to kick myself in the ass
right.
and be
And
like,
he's saying you're
dude,
better
like,
than this. I know you're better
yeah,
than
yeah,
this,
yeah, you're better than this. You can do better than this. But
Yeah.
then there's also positive affirmation in that, where I'm like, you're doing great. Like,
Yeah.
wow, look how far you've become. Like, you got more to go. You got a lot of work to do, but look at you. You went from here to here. This is amazing. Not a lot of people can do what you're doing. So, it's also, you also want to give yourself positive feedback. So love
Yeah.
yourself and those things.
Those are good, man. Those are good. Do you do any like rituals in the mornings or anything like that? Like
So
self-talk or
first,
anything?
yeah. So first thing in the morning when I wake up, I always wake up, and I think we all kind of do that thing where we're kind of like groggy, sit up in our bed, right, and our feet before they touch the ground. This is kind of funny, but I always say, "Don't be a bitch."
Yeah.
That's my thing. When I wake up, in my mind, I say, "Don't be a bitch."
Yeah.
That's it. That's pretty much it. I say, "Don't be a bitch today."
There's gonna be a lot of shit I don't want to do today, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
it.
exactly. That's all it is. It's like, and I always remember that the number one battle that we face each and every single day is the alarm clock. If you defeat the alarm clock, if you win the first battle of the day, and I've heard multiple motivators, people, everyone speak about this, and I truly believe this now, is if you truly win that first battle of the day where you don't hit the snooze buttons, you get up at the time you're supposed to get up, and you attack the day, from there on out, every other battle, you're just gonna have every reason to win it. Whether
Yeah.
it's, okay, you woke up now, you got your coffee. Well, now I gotta go to the gym. Fuck, I don't want to be here. I hate this. Well, you're already up. You're
Yeah.
already there, and then you're gonna win that battle. And then you get to work, and you got a list of things you got to do, and things you got to knock out, and things you got to be productive about. Well, it's gonna be even easier to win that battle because you've already won all these other battles throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then when you get through that day, at the end of the day, that's where you realize, damn, I'm a beast.
Yeah.
When people have really tough days, they call me. I have people that call me a lot. A lot of people talk to me. They're like, man, I'm going through this really hard time. I always tell them this, and I don't know if I heard this somewhere else. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I tell them, these are character building days, baby.
Yep.
These are the days that build character. These are, because I tell them, anyone can be with anybody if everything's good and happy all the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
It's when shit hits the fan. It's when everything that can go wrong goes wrong, that I think truly defines who we are in those moments. And that's really the character building of a person, right? Someone once told me, when I was going through the sobriety, I had left my house for a little bit. I was going through some stuff. He said, a lot of our problems, he's like, and I know your problem, and I have to tell you this, man, is your character changes. Depending on your situation, depending on what you're going through, your character changes. A man's character shouldn't waver or change regardless of the things that we're going through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
That's
think
good.
that
Yeah.
that's why I say those days where everything that can go wrong is going wrong. Dude, I'm serious. Like, I'm kind of crazy in some ways, because I'll be at work or wherever I'm at, and I'm just like, woo, let's go. This is character building time right now. Oh, I just dropped this paint. Oh yeah, this is it, baby. Oh, and I just got all these work orders that came in. This is good. Let's go. Oh, you trying
Yeah,
to play with me, devil? You trying to mess with me today? This is character building time. I am built for
for
this. Let's go.
sure.
And that's kind of that self-motivating talk that I do to myself, because I think the normal thing to do is to be like, man, fuck this.
Yeah.
Oh, and start complaining and start doing this and this. No, man.
Yeah. No,
Those are
it's
the
it's a
character
it's a
building
it's a
days.
start downhill and it'll
Yeah.
ruin your whole
It'll
day.
be a snowball. It'll be a
Yep.
snowball. It'll
Yep.
just be a snowball effect. So you could take it two of one ways, man. And the
That's
thing is, the thing is, it won't get better. That's the secret. That's the honest
yeah.
truth. It's fucked up. You can have that motivation. You can think that way, and it's not going to get better.
Yep.
But your mentality and how you approach it is better.
Yeah.
You
It's
have,
I've talked to you about paradigms, right?
yeah. I think, yes, you have. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a paradigm. It's how you look at it, man. Like it could be a great freaking day and I'm gonna get a lot out of this, or it's fucking terrible and I'm pissed off and I want to go home.
Yeah.
Who's gonna have the better life? Who's gonna go
Yeah.
home in a better mood?
Right. No, 100%, man. And
Yeah.
and and we're gonna lose some battles. That's totally
Yep.
normal. You're not gonna win every battle. You're not gonna win every day. But I think it's just having that mentality and wanting to, and the want to not lose, the want to be successful, the want to not give up. I think that's the big thing.
No, I agree, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for coming on
Yeah.
here and talking about
Oh,
your
of course,
story,
man.
brother.
Of
I
course,
hope
man.
someone out there gets something from it. I'm sure they
Yeah,
will.
me too.
There's so many people struggling every day, and I think that to them it's just normal life, right? Like that's just
Right.
what it is. But then who knows? You
Right.
listen to a podcast and you're like, maybe today's the day I change.
Yeah,
Today's the day I beat the alarm.
that's a beautiful thing.
You
That's the
know?
beautiful thing. It can come from anywhere. We just have
Yeah.
to be acceptable to the information, and open our minds and ears and everything to it, and our hearts, and be like, okay, maybe this is for me. This is for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, man.
And
Of
it's just
course, man.
that
Thank you for
one day
having
at a
me.
time. One day at a time,
Yeah,
man. Thank you so
one day
much,
at a
brother.
time, baby.
I'll talk
Yeah,
to you
of
later,
course,
man.
man.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bye.
wait, real quick, everybody. If you do want to join the Facebook community, we do have My Father group. You can come join that and be part of the community. All right, guys. Talk to you
Great
later.
group. All right, man. Talk to you later.